No nanny lasted more than 2 weeks, but when Millionaire heard his twins say this, he fell in tears. The house stood on a quiet street in the suburbs, spacious and filled with every comfort, yet wrapped in an emptiness that could not be ignored. To outsiders, it might have looked like a place of joy and warmth, but inside it carried nothing but coldness and silence. This was the home of Dr. Daniel Hartman, one of the most renowned heart surgeons in the city. He saved hundreds of lives each year, yet he could not save himself from the deep grief that had imprisoned him for so long. Daniel Hartman was a man admired by an entire city. In the operating room, he was strong, decisive, and almost never failed. Dozens of colleagues looked up to him with respect, and patients called him a savior. But when the surgical lights dimmed and Daniel returned to his home, what awaited him was nothing but silence stretching into eternity. Since his wife's death, he had tried to escape grief by working endlessly. Every surgery, every night shift was like a dose of anesthesia, numbing him from the weight of loss. Yet the truth was, he had never faced his pain. He only buried it beneath schedules, reports, and emergency cases. And in that endless busyness, his 2 little girls slowly became strangers in his own life. Emma and Clara, once his greatest joy, now lived only in memory. Daniel could not bear to look into their eyes, for there he saw the shadow of his late wife. He avoided them by leaving the house at dawn and returning after they were asleep. The brief encounters were reduced to hurried nods, forced smiles, or empty questions. The house, as a result, resembled a hospital without patients. Everything was perfect, clean, and orderly, but utterly soulless. White walls stood witness as the 2 little girls sat by the window staring at the road, waiting for something that would never come. Toys lay untouched, laughter never echoed, and emptiness filled every corner. No matter how skilled, nannies soon found themselves drained. Emma and Clara refused to cooperate, not by misbehaving, but by withdrawing. They remained silent, closed off, and their sorrowful eyes made anyone feel helpless. Many left in tears, not because the children were difficult, but because they felt powerless to bring warmth into this house. Daniel knew all of this. He heard reports from the housekeeper. He noticed the changes in his daughters, yet he pretended not to. He convinced himself that money, a grand home, and a secured future were enough. He did not see that the absence of love was the deepest wound. And so the house remained trapped in heavy silence. Each night Daniel walked the long halls, hearing only the echo of his own footsteps before closing the door to his study. On the other side, Emma and Clara fell asleep in each other's arms, learning to live without the comfort of their father's embrace. Inside that vast home, only 3 souls remained, each confined to their own world, separated by invisible walls of grief. After the last nanny left in tears, the atmosphere inside the Hartman home grew even heavier. The housekeeper, who had witnessed the cycle for years, knew that if things continued this way, Emma and Clara would only withdraw further. Though Daniel never asked about it, she quietly searched for a new solution. One afternoon, while reviewing the remaining candidates, she came across Sophia's file, a former preschool teacher who had left her job because of her pregnancy. At first, hiring a young woman expecting a child herself to care for 2 fragile little girls seemed almost impossible. But during a brief meeting, there was something in Sophia's sincere eyes that made the housekeeper nod in agreement. Daniel barely reacted. When told someone new would arrive, he muttered only one short sentence. "Fine, as long as she doesn't disturb me." To him, Sophia was just another name in the long list of people destined to leave. That morning began like any other in the Hartman house. Daniel had already left early, leaving behind the usual emptiness. But for those who remained, it was the day a new face arrived. The heavy wooden doors opened, and Sophia stepped inside. She carried a small suitcase, moved with quiet composure, and radiated a warmth that could not easily be explained. Sophia was unlike the nannies before her, who often arrived with tense eyes or nervous expressions. She was younger than most, in her early 30s, and her slightly rounded belly was proof of a small life growing within her. From the very first glance, the staff knew she was different. It wasn't just her simple clothing or the gentle smile on her lips. It was the way she did not seem overwhelmed by the coldness of the house. Others often tried to fill the silence with chatter, to appear busy, or to present long lists of plans to manage the twins. But Sophia did none of that. When the housekeeper introduced her to Emma and Clara, the girls were curled up in the corner of the playroom, unwilling to even lift their heads. Most nannies would start with commands, "Say hello," or "Come here." But Sophia simply sat down on the rug, set her bag beside her, and opened a picture book. At first, the girls only stole quick glances, pretending not to care. But Sophia's voice was warm and steady, unlike the cold footsteps that usually filled the house. Emma tilted her head, watching a little longer. Clara slowly lowered her doll and inched closer. Sophia never looked up, never rushed them. She simply turned another page. When she read a part where a character did something silly, Clara giggled. Emma glanced at her sister, then scooted closer too, eager to see the pictures. Sophia kept her tone calm, as though their attention was the most natural thing in the world. She didn't exaggerate praise, nor did she act triumphant. By the end of the story, Emma was sitting right next to Sophia, her eyes fixed on the book. Clara leaned gently against her arm. Sophia closed the book with a quiet smile. "I'll read more tomorrow," she said. She placed the book on the little table, left open to the next page, and stood to leave. Not with pressure, not with expectation, just leaving behind a new kind of silence, lighter and filled with a hint of anticipation. The staff watched quietly, astonished. Never before had they seen Emma and Clara willingly move closer to a stranger within minutes. They realized Sophia did not see the girls as problems to solve. She was simply there, gentle, allowing trust to grow in its own time. In the days that followed, Sophia did not try to impose change. When Emma lined up her stuffed animals, Sophia sat nearby, occasionally adding a small bear to the row. When Clara stood by the window watching the rain, Sophia stood beside her in silence. The girls gradually opened up, sitting closer, listening longer. Daniel, meanwhile, remained indifferent. To him, Sophia was just another name on a long list. What he did not know was that from the morning Sophia arrived, Emma and Clara finally had a reason to look forward to tomorrow. And in that anticipation, something new had begun to take root in the house once ruled by silence. In the days that followed, the Hartman house began to shift in subtle ways. No one noticed at first, but the heavy atmosphere seemed a little lighter. And all of it traced back to Sophia's quiet patience. She never imposed strict rules or forced routines. Instead, she chose to accompany the girls through the smallest of moments. One morning, when Clara accidentally spilled a box of crayons, Sophia didn't frown or scold. She knelt down, handed each girl a small container, and said, "Let's see who can pick up the most colors." Emma hesitated, but Clara gave a shy smile. Soon both joined in, giggling when Sophia pretended to miscount so they could win. It was such a simple thing, yet for Emma and Clara, it was the first time they felt encouraged instead of corrected. Another day, Sophia stepped into the kitchen to prepare a snack. Instead of leaving it to the staff, she took out slices of bread and a jar of strawberry jam, then asked softly, "Would you like to help me?" Emma hesitated again, but Clara stepped forward first. Sophia handed her a spoon, letting her spread jam over the bread. The result was messy, uneven, but Sophia praised it warmly. "Oh, that looks delicious. I think the baby will love this smell." Emma's eyes widened at the mention of the baby. She quietly joined, asking to try. Soon the kitchen was filled with the sound of spoons clinking and quiet laughter. Sophia also used play to build bridges. In the living room, she spread a rug, and laid out wooden blocks. She didn't ask the girls to play, only started stacking them herself. Emma, curious, sat down and added a piece. Clara, watching her sister, scooted closer to place another. Together, they built a small tower. When it collapsed, Sophia burst into laughter, and so did they. For the first time in years, the house echoed with children's laughter. But what fascinated Emma and Clara most was the baby in Sophia's belly. Each night before bed, they ran to her, gently pressing their little hands against her stomach. "Can the baby hear us?" Clara asked. "Yes," Sophia replied softly, "and I think she's very happy to have two wonderful sisters." Emma whispered, "Do you like teddy bears?" Then she placed her smallest bear beside Sophia's belly, as if offering a gift. These gestures, innocent as they were, melted the ice around their hearts. The girls began to talk more, laugh more, and most of all, they rediscovered what it meant to belong to a family. Daniel, at first, barely noticed. He still buried himself in the hospital, came home late, and passed the playroom as if it were just another hallway. But one evening, on his way to his study, he heard soft giggles drifting from the living room. The sound was unfamiliar, yet piercingly familiar. He stopped, peeking through the doorway. There sat Emma and Clara, pressed close to Sophia, eyes shining as their tiny hands rested on her belly, asking endless questions about the baby. Sophia listened patiently, answering as though nothing mattered more than that moment. Daniel did not enter. He stood in the shadows, overcome by a strange mixture of warmth and regret. That night, as he closed the door to his study, Daniel realized his home was no longer the same. The walls and halls remained, but the air carried something new, hope. It was faint, fragile, but unmistakable, and it had begun with the small seed Sophia planted through patience and quiet love. Lying awake, Daniel felt a restlessness he hadn't known in years. For once, it wasn't about unfinished reports or the next surgery. It was about Emma and Clara. Unable to resist, he rose from bed and walked toward his daughter's room. Pushing the door open just a crack, he saw Emma and Clara curled beneath their blankets, their faces peaceful, angelic. His chest tightened. How many moments like this had he missed? Not wanting to wake them, Daniel closed the door gently and made his way downstairs. The heaviness inside urged him outside. In the garden, the scent of wet grass lingered in the cool night air. He wandered aimlessly until he noticed a figure. Sophia sat on a wooden swing beneath the old maple tree, her hands stroking her belly, lips moving softly as though whispering secrets to the child within. The sight made Daniel stop. For the first time, he didn't see her as merely the nanny. In front of him was a woman with her own story, fragile yet strong. He stepped closer, his voice low, almost hesitant. "Miss Sophia, may I talk with you?" She looked up, a little surprised, then nodded. Daniel sat on the stone bench across from her, silent for a moment before asking, "How did you manage to make Emma and Clara laugh like that?" Sophia smiled gently, her eyes warm. "There's no trick. I just stay beside them so they know they're not invisible. Children only need to feel seen and loved." Daniel swallowed hard as though memorizing every word. Then, almost without thinking, another question slipped out. "And the baby's father?" The air grew heavy. The wind rustled the leaves. The swing creaked softly. Sophia was silent for a long while, her hands pressing against her belly, her gaze distant. At last her voice broke the stillness, thin but steady. "I was an orphan. I never knew what a family truly meant. No one ever held me and said I belonged. When I grew up, I found my first love, a simple, kind young man. We endured hardships together, shared meals, shared dreams. But when his career took off, everything changed. He left me to marry a wealthy woman." Daniel's fists clenched quietly. Sophia drew a deep breath, her voice trembling yet filled with resolve. "When I discovered I was pregnant, I promised myself I wouldn't tell him. I didn't want pity, nor did I want to beg for love. I am strong enough to raise this child on my own, and for the first time in my life, I feel I finally have a family." Aukti, silence cloaked the garden. Daniel looked at her and realized the woman before him wasn't just giving Emma and Clara a temporary sense of home. She was building, for herself and her child, the family she had never known. A long silence followed Sophia's confession. Only the rustle of leaves and the creak of the swing filled the night air. Daniel sat watching her calm face, though her eyes were still red. In her, he saw not just pain, but a rare strength, the very strength that had reached Emma and Clara and brought back their laughter. At last Daniel spoke, his voice low but firm. "Miss Sophia, please stay here without worry. I won't let you leave like all the others. And I want to thank you, truly. Because of you, Emma and Clara have learned how to smile again. You've given them something I couldn't." Sophia blinked softly. Her expression eased, and a gentle smile, tinged with surprise, appeared. She lowered her head and whispered, "Thank you. I've only done what my heart told me to do." Daniel looked down, his hands tightening, then slowly releasing, as though shedding a burden long carried. In that moment, he understood. Sophia's presence wasn't only transforming his daughters, it was quietly transforming him too. After that night in the quiet garden, Daniel returned to his room but couldn't sleep. Sophia's words echoed in his mind like a bell. He thought of Emma and Clara, their sparkling eyes as they wrote sister on Sophia's belly, the laughter he had missed for so many years. His heart, long consumed by work and grief, began to beat to a new rhythm. The next morning, instead of shutting himself away in his study, Daniel came down to the dining room early. When Emma and Clara walked in, they froze slightly, surprised to see their father already seated. Daniel forced a smile. "Good morning, girls." The sisters exchanged glances before mumbling a reply, but their eyes held a faint sparkle. During breakfast, Daniel clumsily placed eggs on Emma's plate and poured milk for Clara. His hands fumbled, spilling a few drops, making the girls giggle softly. That small laugh was enough to warm his chest. In the days that followed, Daniel practiced being present. When Emma drew, he leaned over, unsure how to compliment, but trying. When Clara struggled with a puzzle, he sat beside her, placing one piece into its spot. At first, the girls were shy, but slowly they began to show him their drawings or tug at his sleeve to sit closer. One afternoon, Daniel stumbled upon Emma and Clara playing Talk to the Baby. They whispered into Sophia's belly, asking if the baby liked cookies or if it was afraid of the dark. Standing at the doorway, Daniel's chest swelled. He stepped in awkwardly. "Could I join you?" Two little faces turned up, eyes shining. Emma nodded eagerly. Clara handed him a doll. For the first time in years, Daniel sat between his daughters, playing a silly, giggly game. From afar, Sophia watched silently, a soft smile touching her lips. She didn't interrupt. She let Daniel and the girls find each other again. In her eyes, the man once locked away was slowly learning to be a father, one small step at a time. He was still clumsy, often fumbling like a student learning from the beginning. Sometimes he upset Emma by mistake or forgot Clara's carefully made-up rules. But unlike the old Daniel, he no longer retreated into silence. He knelt, apologized, and tried again, awkward yet sincere. And to the girls, that sincerity mattered more than perfection. It told them one thing: their father was here to stay. One evening, as the family gathered in the living room, Sophia handed Emma and Clara a picture book and suggested, "Maybe tonight your father could read to you." Daniel flinched slightly, but with his daughter's eager eyes on him, he nodded. His voice was rough, a little stiff, but each word drew Emma and Clara closer. When he stumbled, they giggled, and Daniel laughed too, for the first time feeling he wasn't an outsider in his own home. From then on, something strange happened. Daniel began to look forward to ordinary moments. Not meetings, not reports. What excited him was the sound of little feet on the stairs, the shy daddy from Emma, or Clara's half-smile as she showed him her drawing. One night, he stood over their beds, watching them sleep. Gently, he pulled up the blankets and kissed their foreheads. Such a simple act, but for him, it was a quiet way of asking forgiveness. Deep inside, Daniel knew the road ahead was long. He wasn't yet the perfect father, but he was ready to walk it, no longer alone. Emma and Clara had opened their hearts, and Sophia was there, patiently guiding them all. One quiet weekend morning, Sophia had a routine prenatal checkup. Usually she went alone with the family doctor, but this time Daniel said, "Today, I'll take you. And Emma and Clara too. We'll go together." The girls leapt with joy, eyes shining. They had never been part of something so important. Sophia hesitated for a moment, but seeing their excitement, she nodded softly. The car rolled slowly out of the Hartman gates, the atmosphere inside different from usual. Emma and Clara chattered nonstop in the back. "Will we see the baby today? Can she hear us talking?" Daniel listened quietly, a faint smile tugging at his lips, feeling a peace he hadn't known in years. At the clinic, the bright white lights seemed to glow everywhere. When Sophia's turn came, all four stepped into the exam room. She lay back on the ultrasound bed, lifting her blouse to reveal her round belly. Emma and Clara pressed close, hand in hand, while Daniel sat beside them, his hand resting gently on his daughter's shoulder. The doctor switched on the machine, sliding the probe across Sophia's skin. At first, silence, just the hum of the device. Then suddenly, it came, a rapid, steady, powerful sound. Thump, 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 thump. The heartbeat filled the room, making time itself pause. Emma's eyes widened. Clara covered her mouth in awe. Daniel froze, his vision blurring. For the first time, it wasn't just an abstract idea. He was hearing life, near and real. Emma squeezed his hand tightly. Clara looked up, whispering, her voice trembling but certain. "Daddy, she's already our sister." Emma nodded, eyes shimmering. "Yes, she's already our sister." Two small hands gripped his, and Daniel could no longer hold himself together. He sank to his knees beside the bed, wrapping Emma and Clara in his arms. Tears streamed freely, not of sorrow, but of joy, of release. "Thank you for showing me this," he choked out, his voice breaking. On the bed, Sophia placed her hand over her belly, her own eyes brimming. She witnessed the man who once locked away his heart now open it wide to love. That simple white room became sacred, a place where three souls found one another again and embraced a new life. For Daniel, the sound of the heartbeat was not only proof of the baby's existence, it was the rhythm of his family's rebirth. Afterward, Emma and Clara couldn't stop whispering to each other. "She greeted us with her heartbeat." Daniel held their hands as they walked slowly out, his chest swelling with resolve. Whatever the future held, he would never let those little hands slip away again. That day, the Hartman family was truly bound together, not by blood, but by love. After the ultrasound visit, Daniel returned home with his heart still trembling from the sound of that tiny heartbeat in the white room. For days he couldn't stop thinking about Sophia, her steady gaze, the gentleness she gave Emma and Clara, the quiet strength that had revived the house. A new feeling began to grow inside him. It was no longer just gratitude, it was something deeper. From then on, Daniel began to care for Sophia in subtle ways. He watched to see if she was tired, offered to carry heavy baskets, pulled up a chair for her when the girls wanted to draw. He didn't speak much, but his presence and attentiveness made Sophia notice the change in him. Emma and Clara felt it too. One afternoon they sat on the living room floor, busily drawing. When finished, they ran to Daniel with glowing faces. The picture was simple but profound. 4 figures standing together: Daniel, Sophia, Emma, and Clara, and beside them a large circle representing the baby in Sophia's belly. At the bottom, in shaky, childlike letters, they had written, "Our family." Daniel held the drawing for a long time. His hands trembled slightly, his eyes fixed on the innocent lines. In that moment, he realized he was no longer the man he once was, lonely, distant, hiding from life. He was changing, and it was Sophia and the girls who had led him back into the light. The next afternoon, the garden glowed under golden sunlight. Sophia stood among the roses, watering them, droplets sparkling like diamonds. Daniel approached, his heart pounding like that of a young man. "Sophia," his voice wavered. "There's something I need to say." She looked up, startled by the seriousness in his eyes. He drew a deep breath and continued. "Since you walked into this house, everything has changed. Emma and Clara laugh again, and I found myself again, too. I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose you." Sophia froze, the watering can tilting unnoticed in her hand. Daniel stepped closer, his gaze steady and sincere. "Stay here, not just as a caregiver, but as part of this family, as someone I want by my side forever." The garden fell silent, the only sound the rustle of leaves. Sophia set the watering can down, resting a hand on her belly, eyes shimmering with tears. And in her gentle smile, she knew her heart had finally found its home. One early morning, before dawn had lifted the mist, Sophia knocked gently on Daniel's door. Her voice trembled. "Daniel, I think it's time." Daniel jolted awake. Before him stood Sophia, pale but steady, her hand pressed against her belly, her breath quick. Without hesitation, he called for the car. Emma and Clara, hearing the commotion, rushed from their room, eyes wide with fear. "What's happening, Daddy?" Clara asked. Daniel bent down, stroking their hair, his voice calm but firm. "The baby is coming. We're going to the hospital together." In the car, Emma clutched her sister's hand, while Daniel sat beside Sophia, offering a cloth to wipe her sweat. The tension was thick, yet beneath it flowed a strange, glowing hope. At the hospital, Sophia was taken into the delivery room. Daniel followed to the door, but was stopped by a nurse. For the first time in years, his heart pounded uncontrollably. Turning back, he saw Emma and Clara on a bench, faces tight with worry. He sat between them, wrapping them in his arms. "Daddy, is Sophia in pain?" Emma whispered. "Yes," Daniel answered softly, "but she's strong, and we'll wait here until the baby arrives." Time crawled. Every sound from behind the white door made their hearts stop. Then suddenly, a cry rang out, high, strong, alive. Emma burst into tears. Clara hugged her father tightly. "The baby! She's here!" Daniel's eyes filled with tears. He rose, hands trembling. The door opened, and a nurse smiled. "Congratulations, it's a healthy baby girl." The 3 of them stepped inside. Sophia lay on the bed, exhausted but radiant, cradling a tiny bundle wrapped in pink. Emma and Clara rushed to her side, whispering softly, "Hello, sister?" They glanced at each other, then spoke together, their voices trembling yet firm. "She's already our sister." Daniel could no longer contain himself. He fell to his knees beside the bed, pulling his daughters close. Tears streamed down his face, mingling with their laughter and sobs. Sophia watched, her own heart swelling. In that moment, Daniel knew his family was whole, not by blood, not by obligation, but by love, the love that Emma, Clara, Sophia, and this newborn child had woven together. Golden morning light poured through the window, bathing the room in warmth, and within those arms a new family was born. After the day Sophia gave birth, the Hartman house was never the same. The walls, once drenched in silence, now echoed with a baby's cries, Emma and Clara's giggles, and Daniel's hurried footsteps. What was once a cold museum had turned into a living, breathing home. Emma and Clara quickly became proud little sisters. They competed to hold the baby, to sing lullabies, and to tell her stories. Sometimes they sat for hours just watching her sleep, whispering, "She's our gift." Daniel had changed too. No longer did he shut himself away in his study. Instead, he cradled the baby in his arms, soothed her cries, or crouched on the floor building blocks with Emma and Clara. Many times the staff watched quietly, smiling, for they knew they were witnessing a man reborn. Sophia, though busy with motherhood, remained calm and gentle. She didn't just care for the baby, she was the invisible thread binding the family together. Whenever Daniel stumbled, whenever Emma and Clara quarreled, Sophia's patience and love restored harmony. One summer afternoon, golden sunlight bathed the garden. Daniel stepped out onto the porch, spotting Sophia on the wooden chair, the baby in her arms, while Emma and Clara chased each other like little birds. He froze for a moment, his heart swelling with a peace he thought he had lost forever. He walked closer and sat beside her. She looked up and smiled softly. Daniel wrapped his arms around her and the children, whispering, "Thank you for giving me back my family." Sophia said nothing, simply resting her head on his shoulder, her eyes glowing with happiness. Emma and Clara stopped running and dashed over, wrapping their arms around their father and Sophia. The four of them huddled together as the baby stirred, letting out her first tiny coos. Laughter rang out, blending with the rustling leaves, like music announcing a new beginning. The Hartman mansion, once a place of shadows and silence, had been reborn. It was no longer just a grand estate, it was a true home, alive with laughter, sacrifice, and love. A place where Emma and Clara no longer waited by the window, where Sophia no longer whispered only to herself, and where Daniel no longer walked alone through empty halls. Family, he finally understood, was not defined by blood or perfection, but by love, presence, and the courage to begin again.